In honor of me finishing Lost Belt 3 and in honor of my boy going up on Raid Up, we're going to talk about Qin Shi Huang in today's video. Now this will be more of a discussion type video. Think of the servant evaluation that we did for Melusine a couple months back. I really like doing these when I've already done, say, an actual review for the servant that kind of outlines, okay, this is what they do, this is why these skills might be good, but these videos are more for, alright, so you've used the servant a little bit. Let's kind of talk about some use cases and how you actually use them in practice and how it feels to have used them after using them for a bit. In Qin Shi Huang's case, a bit is since, what, year 3 or something along those lines? And I did say recently that I still think he is one of the better defensive soloers in the game. I still think probably the best one has to be the Lancer Coup, especially if you invest in him, because he's just got such a good kit. Like, his kit is just super nice. Triple non-turn based dodge, a guts that gives you attack, being able to clear debuffs and get a heal, having an NP that can do some decent damage. I mean, I remembered why I loved that unit so much when I was going through the Grail front and bro had to pretty much solo the giant comma by himself. But even though I have all of that praise for Coup, I don't think Qin Shi Huang is like that much worse. I mean, sure, Coup has a lot more defensive options, but one of the strongest things going for Qin Shi Huang himself is that he's a ruler, so he takes very minimal damage from most classes in the game, except for Berserkers, which I found in my use of him to be one of the weaker areas for him, especially when I was trying to do some solos for this video to get him to beat the Lanling and the Zhang Yu fight, but it's really tough to do. So get comfortable, make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you like occasional FGO discussion videos when things are a little bit slower. And if you want me to do an evaluation on any of the other servants that are up on Raid Up right now, leave those in the comments down below. I have no problem absolutely just going in and talking about some of these guys, especially after reading it. I'm a little bit high on the story right now because even though it wasn't the best Lost Belt, it introduced a lot of really cool concepts that I enjoyed, and the characters were cool at the very least, so I'll give them that. But anyway, what do I mean about it being a little bit more awkward and it's kind of tough to try to bring him into a fight that has a Berserker? Well, because Berserkers kind of melt through his HP, being one of the few classes that can actually deal damage to him outside of Avengers, obviously, but you wouldn't bring him to those, hopefully, because not only is he doing less damage, but he's also getting slammed in return. At least for Berserkers, he might be able to take them out before he's defeated, and in that case, because, you know, that's just the most recent one that I was trying to get him to do, it's not impossible to take out Zhang Yu. It just kind of depends on some of your crit luck and some of your crit RNG, but he can take him out. I did have a very frustrating run right before recording this video where he left Zhang Yu on 6,000 HP for his first break bar, and when he had no break bars left, you know, he was on his last HP bar, he left him with like 14,000 HP because we didn't get any crits. And that can be a little bit frustrating because I was like, oh man, as soon as we mop up Zhang Yu, we'll be able to go in on Lanling and we could definitely 1v1 that dude. Especially seeing as he does not have an offensive NP. As an annoying NP, but not a really troublesome one that I would say. So using Qin Shi Huang in the last year has really been kind of eye-opening as far as it comes for solo units. He's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I think more of the slight flaws that are showing in his kit are starting to become more apparent as I bring him to more and more modern quests. I think Berserkers really show some holes that he might have in his kit. But even in more modern fights where bosses really like to remove your buffs, that is an absolute killer for somebody like Qin Shi Huang because he pretty much lives and dies off of his NP. His skills are all very good. They make you feel very rewarded when you kind of min-max them a little bit. I've described it to some people as it kind of feels like you're playing a Yu-Gi-Oh deck almost in the way that you want to extract the maximum amount of value from your cards in a Yu-Gi-Oh deck and try to go as plus as possible. Same thing for Qin Shi Huang. Sure, you could fire his first skill to just get 20% defense down on the enemy, but you could also fire it when they at least have one tick of NP so you get both effects. Same thing for the second skill. You could pump this for the attack buff to try to maybe clutch out an offensive turn where you can take somebody out, or you might need to save it when you need to stun the entire enemy party, as it is a 70% chance to stun all of them. In fact, I still almost won that run, the one that I did right before recording this, because of this skill. It's just, again, unfortunately, we didn't crit, so then Zhang Yu blasted my guy. He just sent him to Kingdom Come, and that's a little unfortunate, but hey, he did get the stun on both of them, which is really nice. So again, finding the situations where you can min-max these skills to get the most value, because there's only 2 effects on the first and second skill, I think is really crucial when using this guy. But you also don't want to hold off too long, because you do need these to be on cooldown, because the only thing you really have to boost your cooldown is going to be your Mystic Code, and that's only going to be popped probably once per battle. I can't see you doing like a 25-turn battle where you're like, yippee, I get to use it a second time. Which is definitely really awkward though on the third skill over there, because that's a 50% battery, and because he lives and dies based on his NP, you really want to use this whenever it's available, but at the same time, it's kind of his only form of sustainability. Now, NP survivability, that means it keeps you alive against like enemy NPs, or if they're going to do like a lot of crits your way or something along those lines. But this gives him sustain because it gives him a 3k heal, and it removes debuffs off of him, which is very, very nice to have. But it's the only thing that he has, and I really think that moving forward, I would like to see them maybe drop a buff on the NP for 2 things. One, just let it bomb like 30 stars, because if you're using him as a solo unit, it can be a little annoying to try and make up some of these star genning, because sometimes you want to go for like a Buster Arts Arch Chain because you want to do some pretty good damage and you want to refund some NP, or sometimes you're just doing an Arch Chain because you're firing the NP and you want to get as much NP back so you could try to fire it again, if not the next turn, but the turn after that, because his NP gain isn't the highest, and while he does have very high hits on those arts cards, you're not going to see the real value on them unless they get crits on them. That's when you're going to see him really refund a bunch of NP. There's not a lot of times where I found that I wanted to go for the quick card, but sometimes I did feel like I had to go for it, especially because the person on my friends list that has Qin Shi Huang has one of the like star drop things on their quick card to help him out. And I think if you just gave him a star bomb on his NP, even dropping something like 30 stars would be really nice. Even maybe 25 or 20 would still be really good. And then maybe just give him a healing buff on this, whether it's just an immediate like 3k heal on his NP, or it's like he recovers 2k HP every single turn for 3 turns, something along those lines, which I don't think would be too broken. I think it would just give him more tools to play with, especially when he's fighting some berserker enemies, because when he's fighting normal enemies, yeah, of course, getting the 3k heal every now and then, especially when you're invincible half the time, that can allow you to sustain your way through them when they're doing no damage to you. But berserkers are outing your sustain. It's almost like there's this feeling of inevitability of when these enemies are going to catch up to you. And not to say that he can't take them out, because obviously when he's stacking 50% crit damage and a 50% attack buff, plus lowering their defense, plus getting an additional 30% attack buff, he can melt some berserkers with some nasty crits. Again, in some of the runs that I've done, we've been able to just completely melt Zhang Yu and then kind of move on from there. But in others, it's like these very small corner cases where we aren't able to take him out, and it's not an infrequent amount of times. And again, I'm using this one just because it's the current fight that's out right now, and it's kind of nice to demonstrate the point because you have some time to set up before you get into the fight fighting the automaton enemies, and then you kind of have an interesting fight where one of the enemies taunts to keep you off the berserker, so the berserker is going to be there for at least 3 additional turns after the first break bar, so you do have to kind of sit there with him. And so I think it's like a very good example to showcase, yeah, he can do it, but it's a little bit more difficult, and it does highlight some of the weaknesses that he might have in the modern era with survivability servants. I mean, we just got Alice, for crying out loud, and she is ridiculously good. We also just got Summer Sith last summer, and she's also ridiculously good. But even going back further than that, we have people like King Protea, we have people like Barghest, where outside of just being straight up one-shot, Barghest and King Protea aren't going down unless they are getting hit with like a tactical nuke or something. And so in that vein, I think he's still really good, and I think he's one of the best defensive soloers in the game, but he just needs a little bit, you know. It's been one of those unfortunate things that I remember playing in year 3 when the meme was, yeah, it doesn't matter how tough the boss is, we're setting in, you know, the Emperor and he'll be able to dominate everything, but it's either getting harder and harder to do that because, no duh, power creep, or there's just some fights that he's kind of gate kept out of because of how they function, and that's always fine. There are just some servants that can't be in certain fights because they get hard countered by it. That's always going to be perfectly fine, you know. I don't mind if X servant can't do everything in the game. I think that's a little ridiculous if you have a Castoria who's good in every single stage in the game, and someone say optimal to bring to every stage in the entirety of the game. That can be a little ridiculous sometimes, but I would like him to get a little bit, which is kind of where I want some of the community to weigh in on these evaluation videos, because I admittedly am not someone that goes out of my way to solo content. It's not a gameplay style that I have the most fun with, but Qin Shi Huang is one of those solo servants that I really like using, because I do get to think about, okay, when is the optimal time to really pop these skills so I can get the most value out of them? And it does have me thinking about, okay, if I do this turn, I'm gonna have to do this next turn. And I really do enjoy stuff like that. Some of the more overpowered solo servants, I mean, even outside of people like Bargus and King Protea, who are really strong, when you get to the level of using somebody like Alice, or even, say, Summer Sith, where they just feel like they're nigh unkillable, it kind of saps a little bit of the fun out. Because, yeah, I do love being super overpowered and, you know, slam dunking the bosses, but I also want a little bit of that challenge there. But I do think, you know, my boy over here could just get a little bit. Again, I think you give him a little bit of extra sustainability and maybe a way to provide stars for himself, whether it is a star bomb or star regeneration, something like that could be immensely helpful for him. I don't want it on any of the skills, because then that makes decisions a little too complicated. Like if it's on skill 1, you're trying to balance, okay, I want stars and HP being regenerated, but I also want to be able to lower the enemy's NP so I don't get blasted randomly. You know, you're trying to juggle all of that, but you're like, oh, I'm also not ready to do damage yet because I haven't set up the NPs and whatnot, so I don't really want to waste the defense down. I feel like putting it on the skills makes you juggle too much, where if you put on the NP, it's just a kind of nice buff to give him. So let me know in the comments down below what buffs you think he could get going into the future. Don't make them too OP, because they gotta be a little realistic. I think mine is realistic. It keeps him pretty good without making him nut-bustingly broken. You can let me know some of your most impressive solos that you've done with Qin Shi Huang, because again, some people are way more determined than I am. You know, if I do a solo and I fail like 6 times, I'm like, this clearly is not the fight for me to be doing. You know, I'm getting booty blasted in here. Maybe I should just go use a different team comp. But some people are dedicated. They will put like 8 hours into trying to get a quest done, and that is commendable, because could not be me. You know, I lose 6 times and it's been like 2 or 3 hours. I'm like, dude, I'm out of here. I can't keep doing this. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.